All right, here we go. It's time to get the show on the road. Welcome again to the Meraki Quarterly, first of the new year and first of the new decade. I'm really excited to get this going again. I think we're now in our third year for the Meraki Quarterly, and it's been a hugely successful webinar series for us. And it was really created initially to really help our audience to understand and catch up with what's been happening over the past calendar quarter. And so that's always encompassing a lot of material. We always have a lot going on right across the portfolio. It's expanding every single day. So what I want to do is just get into some of the headlining details about the Meraki Quarterly. So it is presented by predominantly product marketers, but we also have guest speakers, and we have a very esteemed one with us today. He's got a hat on. That's your clue. It is targeted at established Meraki customers and partners. If you are joining us for the very first time and you're brand new to Cisco Meraki, you are very, very welcome to join us today. We're excited to have you along. If you find the material a little bit heavy going, that may be because we're assuming a certain amount of knowledge of the platform already. So if you are brand new to us, please stick with us and pick up what you can and come back to one of our introductory webinars. We'd obviously love to get you introduced properly and get you on the road with some gear of your own. Now, this is a retrospective look back over the last quarter, and we love to always reiterate this at the beginning of the quarterly. That is the entire point of this webinar. And so that leads me on to say that this is a roadmap-free zone. That means we reserve the right to ignore any questions that you ask about what is coming next. We're really looking back here. We want to make sure we're caught up with everything that we have announced. And so please bear that in mind as we go through. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague Imran, who's going to talk to us about developments in the world of security and SD-WAN.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, everyone, or perhaps even good afternoon for those of you joining us from further afield. Happy New Year, Happy New Decade. Let's get the show on the road with security and SD-WAN. So first of all, I wanted to share a little bit of information about how we're doing in the SD-WAN market as a whole. So we started our journey probably a couple of years ago, a little bit more than that, and customers have really responded very, very well to developments we've making in the SD-WAN space. Of course, we had the acquisition of Viptela as well to bolster that up. And I'm actually now very pleased to disclose that Meraki and Viptela combined have over 20,000 customers that put their trust into Cisco SD-WAN across both of our platforms. So we've got deployments across all industries around the world, hundreds of thousands of sites that are being managed by Cisco SD-WAN powered by Meraki and Viptela. And this is being recognized by the top analyst firms across the globe as well. So Gartner's just an example there. They've put Cisco SD-WAN as the market leading vendor with over 16% of the market share. IDC is similar in their numbers in that they have Cisco as number one. So speaking about customers and how Meraki and Viptela are helping customers, I would like to share with you just an example of such a customer that's experienced a great deal of benefit and good results with SD-WAN powered by Meraki. So we do have customers truly across the globe here. This particular example comes from New Zealand. So VTNZ, Vehicle Testing New Zealand, is the largest provider of vehicle safety assessments in New Zealand. They've got around 1,200 employees spread out across about 150 locations. So your typical Meraki customer. However, there were some additional things that they're doing that are quite unique. As a auto parts company, they have specific applications that are customized to them, and they typically will backhaul all of their branches through a headquarters or a data center. And in fact, they've been using more and more cloud applications, as every company in the world has been. And so they've experienced some challenges along the lines of heavy traffic, backhauling to data centers, and increasing demand for cloud applications as well. So generally traffic increasing and causing a bit of a bottleneck with the data center there. A great anecdote, actually, when we're speaking to the CIO there, he actually dreaded going in on Mondays, more so than anybody else does. He dreaded going in on Mondays because he was greeted with phone calls from branch managers complaining that they weren't able to trade because of connectivity issues. So they didn't actually have a great strategy in place for failover should their fairly expensive MPLS links go down. And there was just general lack of visibility. The IT department couldn't identify A, when the network went down, and B, why that was, of course. So enter Meraki. They've actually gone ahead and deployed not just Cisco SD-WAN powered by Meraki, but the entire Cisco Meraki product portfolio. So they can now get new branches up and running really in a matter of minutes using templating functionality that we have available within the dashboard. On the SD-WAN side of things itself, the traffic was that's going to headquarters was eased dramatically, so they can now avoid backhauling all their data to the data center. They have security at the branch level now, integrated with the MX appliances, of course. So there's no concerns there in terms of security, having to tunnel all their data through a data center where traditionally most of the security would have been housed. So this is actually really helping them manage their legacy applications while actually still contributing to the organization's overall cloud-first strategy. The results, they've managed to move themselves away from expensive MPLS links whilst maintaining and massively improving the reliability by replacing with broadband and fiber links. And they're actually also able to utilize the embedded LTE models to actually utilize 4G for failover should anything happen to the primary broadband or fiber links. So this has culminated in 20% savings total annual WAN costs, and all the branches are now equipped with over 20 times more bandwidth. So a 20% cost saving and a 20 times increase in bandwidth. You can't get much better than that. And it's a great quote here from Chris, who is the infrastructure manager at VTNZ, saying if he was asked 3 years ago whether the IT department could have a diverse networks across the 80 branches, he'd have said he was insane. But he can now put diverse connections to all of his branches at a very competitive price point. If you're interested in finding out more about this particular customer case study, full details are available at the URL at the bottom and a video as well if you don't fancy reading. So I'm going to hand over to myself now, talking about Meraki Insight. For those of you who are a little bit less familiar with or haven't tried out Meraki Insight, first of all, this is a software overlay on the Meraki MX. So if you have an MX device today, simply need a license for that particular device from Meraki Insight, and you'll have all this great functionality. So at a high level, Meraki Insight provides you additional visibility for what your applications are up to beyond just the local area network. So that's a screenshot that you're looking at on the left-hand side there. So you're able to monitor the performance of web applications traveling either through the VPN tunnels that the MX forms or general public internet. So you can see, hopefully it's not too small. Google Drive, for as just an example, you're not just kind of given information as to how that's performing on the local area network. We have critical path really that we've identified, the local area network, wide area network, and the server itself where the application lives as the critical path that applications need to traverse to successfully reach the resource in the application that a user is after. Now the dashboard gives you great LAN visibility, of course, but enter Meraki Insight and you now have visibility into A, is your application performing exactly how you want it to do so, and if it's not, where does the degradation lie precisely in a very easy at-a-glance view. What we also have with Meraki Insight is WAN health. So this is an at-a-glance view of the health of all of your MX uplinks across all sites that you have in your organization. So let's say, for example, you have 20 MXs in your environment today, or maybe even 10,000. You can have a view that shows you one place all of your WAN links, regardless of what they may be, MPLS, broadband, fiber, even cellular, how they're performing, and you have a really nice headline at the top to track those. So I'd like to also use an example of a customer who's benefited from Meraki Insight to give you a real life understanding of how this is helping customers out in the wild. And the customer we're going to be talking about is, and taking a bit of a closer look at, is Van Oord. So they are a Dutch-owned, family-owned company with over 150 years of experience as an international marine contractor. So their mission as an organization is to be the global marine contractor specializing in dredging, oil and gas infrastructure, and offshore wind. So hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture as to the environment that these guys are operating in. So if you think offshore rigs, very remote environments, they have got around 5,000 employees spread out across 60 locations globally. So they actually utilize, as you can imagine, the locations that they're in. Not all of those, in fact, a large amount of those are not going to have access to even broadband fiber, let alone MPLS. So they're actually having to utilize satellite links. And anybody who has used satellite links in the past will know how intermittent they can be. So with Meraki Insight, they're actually now able to track applications and understand even when those satellite links are degrading performance of applications, whether it's indeed the satellite link or if it's a server issue or something on the local area network. It provides them that end-to-end visibility so they can guide network teams locally at the oil rig, for example, itself, to take the appropriate and the most efficient action to get things back on the road. And there's a great quote here from Thomas, who is the lead engineer at Van Oord, saying WAN health in Meraki Insight really gave him a lot of good information about how the network is performing and how he can use the advice to then relay to a remote team to get a resolution in place. So with Key Insight and with WAN Health, you've got metrics such as average loss, latency, jitter, all available to really help track how those satellite links are performing. So just one additional section to bear with me now. So speaking of WAN links, and cellular is a big deal in today's world. Everybody uses it in your smartphone, and it's a big thing for organizations as well. So this past quarter, Meraki introduced a brand new Meraki product line, the MG Cellular Gateway. Before I get into details about what it is that we actually launched and some product details, I want to actually address one of the major areas or challenges that the MG Cellular Gateway overcomes. So you might be thinking, why do we need a cellular gateway? I thought we had embedded LTE in MX already. And you'd be absolutely right, we do. However, if you imagine where a lot, and in fact most of those devices, not just Meraki, any LTE enabled devices might live, they might be in a network closet, or often they will be in a network closet. Now imagine where those network closets are in organizations. They're in a four-walled room deep inside a building somewhere, deep dark room where cellular signal is not great at all. Now, you can, of course, extend the antenna using a coaxial cable to the outside of the building or to a location which has better cellular signal. However, for those of you who have worked with coaxial cables before will know that you really can only do this over short distances. Anything significant, you're going to have massive loss. So just over 10 feet, you have over 2 decibels of loss. So it really isn't a convenient solution if your source or location of good cellular signal strength is more than any significant distance away. So enter the Cisco Meraki Cellular Gateway. It's available now to order. You can see that half cut out. It's a beautiful device. It unlocks the potential of wireless WAN, this technology, to allow organizations to be able to utilize cellular for either primary connectivity, which we expect to see more of, especially with the advent of 5G, which promises throughput and latency benefits as well. However, almost half of all customers or organizations out there are using cellular as their form of backup. So this is a great way to utilize cellular as backup. You can really precisely place this exactly where you want to get optimal cellular signal strength. So these devices are all IP67 rated, so you can put them outside the building. They very happily sit out there and have no performance impact. And finally, we can pair this device with any router available on the market to deliver failover or primary cellular support. So this is what the device looks like. Hopefully it shows up okay there. It's pretty white. The Meraki MG21 model is the one we launched, Cellular Gateway. So that's the model with the integrated antenna that you see. We have another model we launched with an external antenna, which you can then pair up with a patch antenna that we have as an accessory if you do require high gain and high directional sensitivity. Both models are IP67 rated and both come with Meraki lifetime warranty. They have an integrated Cat6 modem that delivers up to 300 megabits per second throughput. You can power these things in one of two ways, either DC or PoE. So this is something that customers, early customers, have really latched onto and are very excited about. It's also got two Ethernet ports to give you some additional flexibility in the way you deploy this. So you can actually use two of these to provide into an MX or any other router or SD-WAN appliance to do SD-WAN fully over cellular, for example. Plenty of other use cases out there. All you need to do is pop in a nano SIM card and you're good to go. Just nano SIM card, same thing that you pop into your Android or Apple iPhone device. One thing I do want to point out about this, and I know this because the engineers talked to me a lot about this and how much time and painstaking attention to detail they gave this, is the mounting bracket. It doesn't sound too out there, too sophisticated. However, we did spend a lot of time to make sure this had a good locking function, and just with the single mounting bracket that comes with the device itself, you're able to mount it onto the wall, ceiling, pole, if it's going to go outside high up above the tree line, for example, or even the tabletop. So the device itself is built to fit in with any environment that you might be operating. So as you would expect, it works like a dream with the Meraki MX downstream of it. You can also put a Cisco ISR V-Edge device downstream of it to offer cellular over SD-WAN over cellular, beg pardon, or indeed any other third-party router. It integrates into the Meraki dashboard the same way that any other device does. In fact, for those of you who are starting to dabble into the APIs that we have, this is the first product we have ever launched that has 100% API coverage, both on monitoring and configuration settings at launch from the get-go. So this is available today. So if you want to try it out for yourself, the free trial program extends to this particular device. URL is meraki.cisco.com/eval. Thanks very much. Now I'm going to hand over to a better sounding person, Melissa with API and Cloud.
First off, last quarter we announced the Developer Early Access Community. This is a private group of customers and partners that get early access to some of our API endpoints and frameworks and beta projects, with the goal of providing regular feedback back to our product team here at Meraki. So if you are interested in being a part of this, we have an application available on the Developer Hub. That's developer.cisco.com/Meraki, and that's under the Resources tab. We're really excited about this new group of users. Also in our platform news, last quarter we made per device licensing live. It's available for new and existing customers to opt into in the dashboard. Some new features and benefits of this licensing model include partial renewals. You can move licenses between organizations without having to call into Meraki support. There's also a 90-day activation window from the point of purchase of a license to when that license will start to tick or burn time. We have full licensing APIs for per device licensing, and basically, per device licensing also allows you to have individual device shutdowns or license devices individually. If you want to learn more about this before converting, we have an on-demand webinar on the Meraki webinars page that goes over what's new with licensing. We also have full documentation guides on documentation.meraki.com, and more information can be found in the new features section inside the dashboard. Yesterday, we also launched the first Python webinar on the Cisco DevNet and Meraki Bright Talk channels. This totally unpacked the new Python software development kit, or SDK, for the dashboard API. Some new things about that SDK are listed here. It is a support for all API endpoints. It is in the Open API specification, and there are a lot of additional benefits in this new kit. If you want to learn more, please check out the recorded on-demand Programming in Python webinar on the Bright Talk channel. We also have more information about the new SDK on the Developer Hub on developer.cisco.com/Meraki under the What's New section. I'll call out these links, or we'll have these links in a few seconds for you as well. Next week, we have another upcoming API webinar we're really excited about. This is the Node-RED project. If you're not familiar with Node-RED, basically this is a tool to allow you to really easily and intuitively create workflows. The Node-RED tool will fill in some of the boilerplate code around some of the commands or actions that you take with API services, in this case, the Meraki Dashboard API. We have that webinar coming up next week that'll demonstrate this project for you and go over some of the sample code, sample flows that we've already built. That's January 14th, and that's on the Bright Talk channel as well. And last quarter in webinars and podcasts, we had a number of API-specific regional webinars in different regions that you'll be able to find on the Meraki webinars page in your specific area. We also had a Meraki APIs for Beginners webinar hosted on the Cisco DevNet Bright Talk channel. That link is below. All of the Bright Talk webinars I've talked about so far can be found on that Meraki or Cisco DevNet Bright Talk channel. We also had a new podcast come out last quarter that was our second podcast on APIs, where we had a couple of guest speakers, and community users will probably be familiar with Nash King. She's one of our all-stars on the community, joined us to talk about APIs, along with the developer evangelist from the Cisco DevNet team, Matt DiNapoli. So take a listen on that on any way that you're currently subscribing to podcasts. We have some upcoming DevNet Express events in the coming months or so, a few of those around the Cisco Live Europe show in Amsterdam and in Barcelona. These DevNet Express workshops are basically live hands-on learning environments or learning courses to help you get started with Meraki Dashboard API services, as well as our captive portal and even MV API services as well. If you're not seeing an area near you and you're interested in attending one of these, I'd say reach out to your local account team and see if they're setting anything up in the coming months or so. We also released an updated scanning and location API. There's more about this on the developer.cisco.com What's New section. That's our developer hub. But high level, this new API improved location accuracy by up to 30% to provide a plus or minus 3.2 meter estimation. So we're really excited about that. There's some new additional details or things in that API endpoint to look into, including detailed readings and floor plan information and things like that. We'll also be at DevNet Create this year, and early bird registration is still open for this, so for discounted registration to the event. It's on March 10th and 11th. This is always a great time to meet a lot of our product team and hear about what's new in terms of launches and new API endpoints and services. So take a look and see if that's something you wanted to attend. And in terms of new endpoints, all of this information is fully detailed on our developer hub. Again, the link down there below. But we had a number of different API endpoints released over the last quarter. Some major callouts, including the network event log and wireless settings and things like that. So if you want to learn more about that, go ahead and take a look at the developer hub to fully unpack all of the new endpoints that we released in the last few months. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to George for updates on Meraki smart cameras.
Hello, everyone. And if you're wondering who the person was wearing a hat, that was me. Thank you very much, Simon. So I wanted to start out with a great story of Cisco on Cisco, Cisco using Meraki technology. And this is a huge deployment we have going on with the Cisco IT team globally to look at managing server rooms, MDFs, IDFs, comms rooms. I think it's something that we can all sort of associate with in the IT industry is how do we know what's going on in these rooms? I mean, they're critical to our business and they're critical to our infrastructure, but quite often you walk into one of these rooms and you're like, how did that bicycle get there? Why is my thing missing? Who unplugged that thing? And the cameras really help answer that question. You can go and do that retrospective to find out what happened. And the Cisco IT team have a great blog post that you can Google for. I'm sure we'll have some way of showing the link for, detailing how they're going and doing just that. I think my favorite story as an example of the power of having a camera in this type of environment to help answer complex questions came from a customer. And they had an outage, and they didn't really know what happened, but all the servers basically went offline. And then it took some time to restore, and they had to try and sort of get everything back up and running. Now, they had some Meraki cameras in there, and the cameras were running. They went back and looked at the footage, and what happened was a contractor was in the room doing some conduit work, and they dropped their ladder on the PDU power cable, and the ladder basically yanked that cable out of the socket. Now, they had thought that their servers in that room were all dual homed from a power perspective, but apparently not. So when that power cable got pulled out, all of the servers got hard shut down. The guy then plugged the power in and walked off. Now, he doesn't know that all of those servers need restarting and all the services are probably in a bad state, but that allowed them to work out what happened and go speak to that contractor and say, come on, you owe us some money for all the downtime we incurred due to your person's incompetence. So those type of use cases, I think, in the IT space really sort of appeal to me. Some of the other areas where it becomes particularly useful is when you can set up alerting as well. You can use the motion-based alerting, set it over the door, and if anyone walks through that door, you're going to get pinged. And then you can see it's Simon, and he's going to go install that fancy MS390 switch with all those great pieces of functionality. Or you could see it's my colleague Matt, and he's gone in there to try and acquire, shall we say, some extra fiber cables for another project, and we actually need those for the project in the server room. So I just wanted to highlight that because it really is a large deployment, thousands of cameras across a global set of server rooms, and that's rolling out now. I want to highlight one feature that I think is pretty close to my heart and also sort of allude to the future. I know Simon is particularly strict about this not being a roadmap session, so I'm going to try and avoid his wrath by not talking about such things. But I know there is a huge demand and a huge appetite for the ability to use your cameras on a mobile device. And so we are working on that. We are diligently evaluating how we can sort of update the Meraki app, provide camera apps and so on. But in the short term, we want to get people going without them having to wait while we do so. And so we updated the support for mobile browsers for dashboard. So this is not an app. This is just the native Meraki dashboard in a mobile browser such as Mobile Safari, Firefox, or Chrome. And previously you are able to sort of like point at the screen, but you ain't able to drag and select. That you needed to have a mouse for. Well, now you can sort of drag and select, which means all the features that have that as a core component of how you interact with them. So that's things like motion search, configuring motion-based alerting, focusing your camera on a particular zone, you're now able to do on a mobile device. So really a great little update, which is going to sort of keep us going while we get the core mobile capability of cameras and other Meraki products out to you in the near future. A feature that came out this week is a brand new one regarding exports. It's, again, a relatively small update like the one you saw on my previous slide, but really a high quality of life improvement for people running cameras. You can now set the time you want your export to happen. Now, the reason this could be useful for you, and this is something we hear from our retail customers regularly, and not just for Meraki cameras, but for like any camera system, is that you do not want to prevent yourself having credit card transactions or processing payments because that's core to your business. But in your retail location, you may not have a very large amount of bandwidth. So if the security team are trying to investigate a theft or a slip and fall incident and start pulling video remotely from that location during peak hours, you often end up in a situation where trying to investigate this theft or this loss, the cost of that is less than the cost in terms of lost transactions because the internet connection is all consumed with your video exports. On the other hand, we also don't want the poor security guards and investigators logging in at 2 a.m. to get all their exports running. So this new feature allows you to go investigate your particular situation, set the export so you can get that video off the camera, you can get the timestamps, the watermarks, that SHA-256 checksum created, and then that's stored in our cloud for a year, but you can set it to happen out of hours without having to be there out of hours. So again, that nice sort of update, not a huge one, but one that's going to improve the quality of life for people using cameras on a daily basis. What I would like to highlight is this feature was released this week. We have a great blog post about it this week written by my colleague Sarah Lynn, and we are going to be having more features like this released every week up until February. So please come in, check out the blog post. You'll get to see all of the information about the new features coming up. Finally, I want to highlight that we have a major new firmware release for the Meraki cameras. This is MV 4.0. This doesn't bring a host of like crazy new features, but it's something we've been working on for a long time. We've been looking at the core camera structure, how the software works, looking at how people are running the cameras, and also looking at the support cases that have come in, and we've taken all of that experience and all of that knowledge and reworked a lot of the core underlying camera functionality to make it more stable, increase the performance, allow you to have more people viewing video at the same time. Basically, the camera software is just more refined and just you're going to have an even better quality experience. So Simon's asking me why there's a hat on there. I feel like after your intro, this should be pretty obvious that there's a reason there's a hat on there. But I highly recommend that you move to this new firmware. One thing that you're going to see in the firmware notes for this, and I just want to sort of give you some context so it doesn't sound too scary, is this is a one-way process. You're not able to backtrack from MV 4.0 to the older firmware. And this is because there's such a comprehensive update of all the core camera features to improve it that it's not actually possible to go backwards. But we're seeing a lot of good feedback on MV 4.0. All the new cameras we're manufacturing are going to be on MV 4.0, and we're scheduling upgrades to MV 4.0 for all of you as well. But I would recommend you get there even sooner. So go in, schedule that upgrade to this new firmware now, and you'll be on the road to even better cameras. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Amelie with one of my second favorite topics behind cameras, because I used to work on Systems Manager. Let's get an update on Systems Manager.
Thank you, George. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to be giving a recap on Systems Manager. So last quarter, we were really excited to announce our latest feature, Meraki Trusted Access. And this is really exciting for Systems Manager because this feature really starts the journey for Systems Manager to be more than an MDM or EMM solution, as it has always been known to be. And what Meraki Trusted Access is the ability to give you the ability to securely connect devices without the need to install an MDM agent or an MDM solution on that end device. And that's going to be a big changer for a lot of our customers, especially for those use cases where people are bringing in their own personal phones or personal tablets into the workplace and wanting to securely connect to work assets, and to give them a peace of mind that their company is not controlling their personal devices. And on top of that, it's going to be able to give IT teams flexibility while also having a way to securely, to secure their endpoints in their workplace. And so in order to learn more about Meraki Trusted Access, there are a few things you can do. You can first read the blog, which we released in December, get a rough idea of what it can provide as a solution. And then next, if that gives you an interest, you can attend the webinar, which we just released this month. And there are 3 more sessions this month, so please do register to attend the webinar. And of course, like most introduction webinars, this one will give 20 free Systems Manager licenses. And also, since this feature is already available, if you already have
Systems Manager licenses and wireless access points in your network today, you can actually start using it because it's using the same Systems Manager license that we've always been selling. Refer to the documentation guide if you need more information on how to set it up correctly, and also visit our Systems Manager product page for more information. And with that, I will be handing it off to David, who will be talking about wireless.
Thanks, Emily, and hello, everybody. Happy New Year. This is David. I'm on the product marketing team covering wireless. So we had a few updates for you guys, but one of the trends that I wanted to talk through that we're seeing a lot of from the Meraki side and our customers, and I'm sure you're seeing it as well, and that is the proliferation of IoT devices, wireless devices connected all over your organization. So if you're a retail branch, you're going to have point of sale devices, scanning guns that are connected wirelessly. You may have sensors in a building. You might have RFID readers. You're going to have guests coming in connecting wirelessly, temperature sensors, right? So all over the place, we've got all of these different IoT devices, and the challenge is actually securing these devices. How do we actually secure these devices? Because many of them do not have 802.1x capabilities. And if you don't believe me, I mean, just go look up a Google Nest, for example. If you look up the specifications, you'll see that it says no 802.1x available. And that's the case for a lot of IoT devices. In our recent launch, we also talked about essentially IoT devices getting hacked in an average of 5 minutes. It's about the amount of time that it takes on average to hack into an IoT device. So how do you know if an IoT device of yours, maybe it's a thermostat or something, isn't talking to a sensor in Ukraine, for example? Well, we've got a few different solutions that came out over the last quarter that I wanted to talk about relating to this. And the first is Meraki Identity PSK. We recently put out a blog post about this if you want to learn more. But essentially what Identity PSK, or IPSK for short, does is it's able to assign users and devices unique pre-shared keys, and then you're able to build identity-based groups based on those keys. So just as an example, right, let's imagine you are a hospital and you've got lots of different sets of IoT devices. You might have thermostats, you might have wireless infusion pumps, patient monitoring tools, and some of these devices actually use really old operating systems. They've got Windows 95 running, believe it or not. So with IPSK, the hospital IT admin can now actually assign those different groups of devices. Let's say, for example, the infusion pumps, we're going to call that IoT group 1. Then we're going to take the patient monitoring tools, assign that IoT group 2, and each of these will have a specific pre-shared key, and then you're able to basically segment those different groups, apply VLANs and different security group policies. So it really helps in terms of securing all these IoT devices, as well as doing it at scale. So it's using a Radius server for the authentication of all those different devices. So in addition to Identity PSK, another new update over the last quarter that we announced was an Umbrella integration with MR. And if you've been following along in the different quarterlies and Meraki Wireless, you know that we already did Umbrella a little while ago. So what's new here? The new thing is that this is two solutions. So you've got Meraki Cloud Managed Wireless plus Cisco Umbrella, which is also a cloud managed security technology. And this comes in one single license. And that's really the new piece here. It integrates Umbrella into the Meraki dashboard as well. So if you're not familiar with Umbrella, I'll give you kind of a quick background and overview. So how does it work? Well, in your organization, you've got lots of different devices that are connecting wirelessly. You've got guests coming into your network. You don't really know what DNS locations they're going to. You've got corporate devices, right? Lots of different devices connecting wirelessly. And DNS is actually one of the most exposed layers. There are 95% of advanced malware attacks that use DNS to expose your network. So it's really sort of a blind spot for a lot of devices within your network that are coming in and out. So what Umbrella does, and you can enable this with Meraki MR, is it adds an additional layer of security on top of your network, and that is on the DNS layer. So Umbrella has lots of sophisticated technology, machine learning and AI that is kind of studying the web, all these different DNS locations, and is able to categorize those locations as either malicious or safe. It's able to assign different content categories to all of those different DNS locations. So if your IoT device starts talking to a server in Ukraine, Umbrella will be able to detect that, note it as a malicious DNS location, and block that from exposing your network to vulnerabilities. So just to summarize, if you are already familiar with Meraki Wireless and Umbrella working together, that was the solution on the left, and that is still available. So you've got, in this solution, two different dashboards. You've got the Meraki dashboard, and then you also, via API, are able to link your wireless access point into Cisco Umbrella, and then monitor the DNS threats, the blocked threats, etc., and get really rich visibility with the Cisco Umbrella dashboard. That is two dashboard solutions, but this new integration that we're talking about is on the right here, which is that you are able to pull those DNS updates into the Meraki dashboard itself, which is what you can kind of see in the visual there. And that uses a Meraki MR Advanced license. So instead of buying the traditional MR Cloud license for your Meraki access point, if you want Umbrella, you would just instead buy the advanced MR license. So it makes it easier for you to kind of integrate Umbrella in, make a simple license purchase to have that automatically pulled in. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Abi for an update on switching.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Abi. I work on the product marketing team covering switches. And in the last quarter, we had one of the most significant announcements in our switching portfolio. For the longest time, our customers have been asking for a switch that's really flexible when it comes to hardware, and also something that can cater to some of the high performance needs across all of our enterprise environments. And to really answer this need, we've introduced the MS390, the most powerful access switch we've ever produced. Now, this switch is the first switch that combines Cisco Meraki's signature simplicity with the power of Cisco switching innovations. And what that really allows us to do is provide a great array of features. And one of the biggest things in terms of hardware flexibility on this switch is the ability to have flexible uplink modules. The uplink module panel that you see here on the switch can be swapped out, and you can choose any of these three uplink modules to go with. And this is exclusively available on the MS390. We have uplink modules that have 2 ports with 40 gig capabilities, and we also have 4 and 8 port 10 gig capability uplinks. And to really look at the feature set of the MS390, this is the first switch that has a full 48 port mgig functionality. And it also allows you to do up to 480 gigabits of stacking. And one of the cool features that is really having a great purchase with our customers out in the market is stack power. Now, what stack power, which is unique to MS390, allows you to do is the ability to pool power resources from all of your switches in a stack, which increases the available PoE budget that you now have from this entire stack together to power more PoE devices, more IoT devices, and so on and so forth. Additionally, stack power also acts as a traditional redundant power source. If your primary power to one of the switches in the stack fails, it will pull power from the other switches in the stack and keep running. This way, you can ensure that all of the switches in their stack are running, even if there's a power failure to one of them. Additionally, we've also improved the physical stacking features on the MS390. And what this means is essentially, if there is a failover in the stack, we're looking at convergence times of less than 1 second. And this is incredibly critical in large enterprise scale deployments. We also have this feature called adaptive policy. But before we go there, let me talk to you a little bit about how this feature came to be. One of the common things we do at Meraki when we're trying to build new solutions is listen to our customers. And one of the many ways with which we listen to our customers is the Make-A-Wish button on the dashboard. And in perusing through all of the requests we get through that button, the thing that really stood out for us is people asking us for an easy and simple way to microsegment users, devices, and applications on their network. And this really perplexed us because there's several legacy solutions which already allows you to do that. But why was there a need for us also to do it? And when we spoke to customers, we realized that while there are legacy solutions, it's incredibly hard to microsegment users on your network. So we decided this is somewhere that Cisco Meraki can bring our signature simplicity. And none of our switches had the hardware capabilities required for us to build a microsegmentation feature. But the MS390 helped us add that particular hardware feature, and we're happy to announce that we now have adaptive policy exclusively available with the MS390 and the MRs. Now, what this essentially allows you to do is segment different types of users and devices on your network so that you can apply granular access and security policies far more easily right from the dashboard. For example, take a look at the illustration below. If you're an IT admin, you're going to need access to both internet services as well as the ability to configure IoT devices. However, if you are a guest on the network, you need access to the guest Wi-Fi, but you don't need access to the IoT devices. By simply dragging a guest to the guest pool, they now have access and security policies that give them access to the guest Wi-Fi, but no access to the IoT devices. However, as David was talking about previously, in terms of IoT devices, you want your IoT device to talk to your Radius server to be able to authenticate itself. But you don't want your IoT device to talk to another IoT device, even if it is within your network. Why? Well, if one IoT device gets compromised, if they're talking to another IoT device, your network will be taken over fairly quickly. And because of that, by dragging different IoT devices into different pools, you can now simply apply access and security policies by calling it an IoT device rather than difficult to decipher IP addresses. So adaptive policy is really powerful in that sense. And if you want to learn more about any of our latest offerings from our recent launch, I would highly encourage you to go and look up our blog. We have a great blog on adaptive policy. We have some webinars on the MS390. So please go to our website and be on the lookout for those. And with that, I will quickly hand it back to Simon for some announcements.
Thanks, Abby, and everybody. It's been a lot of stuff covered as usual on today's quarterly. Let's have a look. Announcements is actually just an announcement that I would like to just share with you today. A very important promotion that we have running right now, which we really hope you can take advantage of because it's quite valuable. So if you are planning a purchase of any of the Cisco Meraki gear, and obviously as you've seen today, the value of the portfolio just keeps on growing. So we really hope you are planning something to expand your use of the Meraki technology. You can benefit from getting a free year of licensing for whatever that technology is, however many devices you add to your product lineup. So all you need to do is purchase 3 years or more license, which is pretty standard when people are implementing Meraki technology, and then you get an extra year of licensing at absolutely no cost. And obviously the value of that goes up the more and more the equipment that you purchase. So of course there are always details for these things, and so I encourage you to go take a look at those. A nice easy URL to remember, meraki.com/first year on us, and that will enable you to see the full details of what we would like you to understand. Okay, so I think beyond that, I just want to recap for you that obviously we will be putting this webinar up online pretty soon, so that you will see a recording probably before the end of this week online for you to take advantage of. I'm getting a nod from Taylor, so that's good news. So please do take advantage of that, recap the details that you've seen in here, and also please do share it with anybody else who you think would find that interesting. I also want to give a quick shout out for the podcast. It's been a super successful first year in 2019 for the podcast, and we're in the process of getting some new episodes lined up and recorded right now, so you can be sure there'll be plenty more content there. It's a really nice way to get into a little bit more detail than we have time to do in a webinar like this, And of course, it's one that you can access in all kinds of convenient situations, commuting in the car or out jogging if you're a healthy person, whatever that happens to be. There should be lots of healthy people in January, right? It's the New Year's resolution thing. I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing some nods. Yes, I'm seeing some nods and thumbs up. Okay, let's have a quick look at some of the questions that came in. We don't have too much time before we need to wrap things up, and we want to get you back to the rest of your day. So let's have a quick look through. We had quite a few questions came in about the cellular gateway, which I think was quite exciting. That's a really significant product announcement. It is a very simple product in essence, what it does, converting that cellular signal to Ethernet for you. But it's one that is incredibly convenient to have that you can manage remotely. And most of the questions that we had that came in around the cellular gateway really related to the carriers and the channels, the bands that it can be used on. And so what I would say is that, sorry, my WebEx just crashed. What I would say is please do have a look at the docs page. What you'll find if you go to documentation.meraki.com is you'll find a list of the different bands that the MG cellular gateway actually does support. That's probably the easiest way. The main carrier that we're using it with right now is AT&T in the United States, and we will be publishing very shortly a list of other carriers that can take advantage of that as well. I need somebody to show me a list of questions because my WebEx crashed. Yours has crashed as well. Okay, we're really loading WebEx up hard today. This sometimes happens when we have lots and lots of people attending, which is kind of good, but also struggle. Hopefully you're all out there still listening right now. Let me have a quick look through the questions that have come in so we can see if we can get some more questions out for you. One of the other questions that came up around the cellular gateway was around the whether it's possible to use a VPN tunnel. I want to just stress that the cellular gateway is a very straightforward device and is not designed to answers here. It's not designed to actually provide that kind of connection. So if you are going to want to use a VPN, then you'll need to use some other technology behind that. So something like obviously the MX would be the primary contender there, but obviously any third-party gateway that has VPN technology that you can use would work. All right, so while we're keeping WebEx just barely alive, we'll just scroll down here and see what else we can find. By way of questions, bear with me for a second. So there's a question here around whether the MS390 is a requirement if you're looking at deploying a trusted access feature. This is one of the coolest features that's been added to Systems Manager a long time, really simplifying considerably getting customers onboarded onto wireless networks. This is something which really brings BYOD to life properly. You don't need an MS390 to do that. That's the good news. So whatever switch you are using, Systems Manager does a really nice job of standing on its own as a solution for onboarding clients from an MDM perspective, but also securely connecting them to wireless networks as well. Okay, so we had a question around which firmware is required for identity PSK on the MR, so on the wireless APs. We will need release 27 firmware, which is available to you now for identity PSK. So if you have been holding back on updates and you want to take advantage of that feature, then obviously it's the time to have a think about getting that scheduled. All right, I think we're going to wrap things up for today. That will do it very nicely. I think we've covered a lot of ground over the course of the past hour. Thank you very much indeed for taking time out again this quarter to join us on the Meraki Quarterly. We're super excited to have you, and we really do appreciate your feedback on this as well. We want to make sure it's as valuable to you as possible. So do give us your feedback in whichever way you choose to do. I'm a big fan of Twitter, so reach out to me on Twitter at Meraki Simon, and I want to hear what you think of this webinar and how we can improve it in 2020. So without further ado, and on behalf of everybody who's joined us today, presenters in the room here, I want to thank you again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and we will speak to you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.